Hi there, it's Chris Kerr. It's June 14th, 9:05 in the morning, 2016. Talking about security at the moment. This is a little assessment or summary of some of the analysis that I've done in terms of the Orlando shooting and the fallout from that. And although it is motivated by understanding what happened in the Orlando shooting, I'm not really discussing the Orlando shooting so much. I'm talking about the broader context of it and what we need to do as individuals in society to better protect ourselves. So, two points of note. One, in 2009, I wrote an article that called for hardening of the soft targets in America, in particular 3 categories of soft targets: schools, large group gathering areas like theme parks and concert halls, and lastly, GLBT assembly areas. The gay community has always had a distance, a distrust to a certain degree of security and law enforcement for what are fairly obvious reasons, given that the Hoover background and all that kind of stuff. So they become a soft target by fiat of that. There's also the fact that, of course, their lifestyle and how they live is anathema of what a lot of our foreign enemies believe, and as a result, they would be a priority target for them. So I picked those 3 for my article. I would now today add several others. I would add cultural areas, churches, synagogues, mosques, any religious or cultural environment, any heritage environment, and I would also select anything that had to do with park services. All of those need hardening up as targets. So what do I mean by soft target versus hard target? Soft target really has no defense. There's no practical security involved in that facility whatsoever, or that environment. A hard target is a target that is much more difficult for an attack to succeed at because there is some form of defense, whether it's security building components, gates, parking lot spikes, that kind of stuff, walls, fences, or whether it's security guards with armed guard response and that kind of stuff, or some other feature. The harder it is for somebody to penetrate and do damage, the harder the target is. Those are the 2 constructs. So in 2009, I was calling for hardening of those 3 key areas: the schools, the large public gathering areas, the concert halls, and the theme parks, and the GLBT or gay community assembly areas. Obviously, none of that has really happened. Most of those environments are still very easy targets, and Orlando demonstrated that in a very classic way. This may sound callous, but that's really what the issue is. These are soft targets. They're easy pickings. And as long as we leave them as easy pickings, people with an axe to grind are going to grind it there. They're not going to go to the hard targets first. They're going to go to the easy ones first, where they can do the most damage. And so if we want to defend our people, we need to seriously improve where we're weak. Where we're weak are in these soft target areas. That's point number 1. Point number 2. In the Constitution, I was drawn today to look at both the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and Responsibilities, the United Nations Rights and Responsibilities of Citizenship, and of course the U.S. Constitution. The 3 documents are actually quite different. Canada and the UN share a similar structure to theirs because they built theirs roughly at the same time. The US, on the other hand, theirs is 200 years earlier, and as a result they have a very different codification of it. So in the US there are really 5 key duties and responsibilities. Everything else is suggested, but there are 5 core ones, and one of the ones is defend the nation. Defend the nation as necessary is the words that are written in bold. So defend the nation as necessary does not simply mean respond to the draft when called, or simply sign up for selective service. Defend the nation as necessary means as necessary in any way that you can. Whether that's keeping the nation's secrets, whether that is going to war, whether that is intervening in the middle of a mass shooting, whether that is making sure that people who are prone to mass violence have more awareness in the police and law enforcement community. I use the example of the Orlando shooter's ex-wife, who was a domestic violence survivor who had clear understanding that this individual had plans or ideas of extended violence, especially against the gay community or any community. But because she was so scared of him, she didn't act on it. She did not advise law enforcement. She did not prosecute him for domestic violence. She did not carry out any of those things that would have impeded his capacity to do what he did. Nothing short of his incarceration for a specific crime would have prevented him from carrying out an act. Nothing. If he wanted to, he could have gone off and gotten a weapon off the street. There are 1,000 ways he could have done it. He could have done it with pressure cookers, like the Tsarnaev brothers, right? So there's no... You can't simply rule it based on the gun. But if more people were paying more attention to the people in their lives and were able to be brave a little bit more, that 20 seconds of insane courage, to get some of these people not just on the radar but out of circulation, that can have an impact. It makes it harder. It makes it more difficult for them to act as they do in society. But it's not easy. We don't have a lot of easy choices left. We've taken all the easy choices off the table, and we're now left with some really, really hard ones. And there really aren't a lot of great answers. There are a lot of wrong answers. There aren't a lot of right answers. You're going to have big challenges in a society where we're talking about bathroom rights or privileges, and freedoms, and at the same time talking about having to harden security so that people who shouldn't be where they shouldn't be aren't. That's conflict right there. When Justice Sandra Day O'Connor retired from the Supreme Court, she made a very telling point. She was asked, what did she foresee the next 50 years of the Supreme Court focusing on? She said, well, the previous 20 or 30 years had all been about individual rights versus the state, or individual rights versus corporations and organizations. Pardon me. She said the next 50 years are going to be individual rights versus individual rights. Which one trumps? Does my freedom of religion trump your freedom of association? Does your freedom of expression trump my freedom of travel? As you see with protesters who are blocking the highways. Where are these freedoms and rights going to bump into each other, and who's going to win? And who's going to lose? Ultimately is the bigger question that people just don't seem to pay a lot of attention to. Because there's always a loser when these two come head to head. John Locke, father of the thinking of natural law, the idea that you have these inherent rights. His point was that you have as much freedom and natural right to do whatever you want until the point of your fist touches the tip of my nose. As soon as you impact my life in any way, shape, or form, you don't have that freedom anymore. That was his point. That was the limit of natural law, natural freedom. That's what we're going to face as we try to harden up some of these targets. And there are ways to do it so that we are not oppressive, but it has to balance out, in that case, with more personal responsibility and freedom to defend ourselves. And we're going to have some real serious butting of heads. And what are the legal parameters for that? In the Wild West, you could duel. It wasn't a perfect solution, but everybody knew where they stood. You didn't think it was important enough to be able to go out and stand up and defend it. You weren't stupid enough to go say it. You knew what the consequences were. Other people who were really good simply bullied people until they broke and killed them anyway. For sport, if you will. That's why we did away with duels. But the point we're running into now is we've run into a situation where we no longer have a capacity to defend ourselves. We've taken those away and given all those rights to the criminals. Not all, but a very large percentage of them. And now we have to decide as a society, have we overreached? Have we given away too much? And you look at certain aspects of society that have had really bad experiences with law enforcement, and they're going to say the exact opposite for their experiences. No, law enforcement is too powerful. We're oppressed for our skin color, for our religion, for our belief systems, for our sexuality, for all those things that they're supposed to be protected for. So if you're not going to have law enforcement do it, and you're not going to allow individuals to do it, then the only thing you're allowing is the criminals to do it. And that's not the basis of a sound society. So we have to make some adult choices here, and people are not going to like the answers. So that's where I see more flare-ups, both domestically and from international sources, is exactly in that environment. And it's going to continue, and it's going to get worse until we have leadership in there that is prepared to find ways to do more nation building and a lot less nation dividing for political gain. And I don't hold any one party more or less accountable for this. All three parties, if you include the Libertarians, all three of them are catalytically driving division. None of them are without stains on that front. And so as a result, until we find some political leadership that's prepared to go do the compromises and the political discussions and negotiations that need to be done to get not consensus, but enough forward progress that all parties feel they're getting something out of this deal. Right now, nobody feels like they're getting anything out of this deal. And that's a big problem. That's how you lose your domestic support. And we need to change that. We need to change it urgently. So the consequences, of course, are going to be more Orlandos, more Sandy Hooks in many respects, more Oklahoma Cities, more San Bernardino, Fort Hoods. You're going to see more of these and more of them. And it's not about guns. It's about not defending our nation from people with ill intent. That's the real issue. Ill intent, insanity, whatever you want to classify that as. It's not pure insanity because it's predictable. It is predictable. We knew some kind of action like this was going to take place, and we did absolutely nothing to protect ourselves from it. We did nothing. And how we go about doing something about it is not merely a case of taking everybody's guns away, unless you're prepared and fully enthusiastically going to support a police state. You have to have law enforcement and security replace what we're not prepared to do ourselves. And I don't think anybody really wants that. I don't think all that invasion of privacy, I don't think all that loss of freedom of living in a police state is what people really want. So we're going to have some real serious butting of heads, and it's not going to be pretty. We need some adults, some grown-ups to go in there and make some decisions. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening, and as an individual, you need to protect yourself and not go to some of these locations that are going to be at higher risk. Shopping, you can do a lot of that on Amazon, and now Walmart has its home delivery service that they're offering for $50 or whatever. Like Walmart, don't like Walmart, you like your life. So, have them ship. Have them delivered to your door. You can have them deliver groceries. Walmart has groceries. Surprise. So, free 2-day shipping. Have them send it. It's usually in your neighborhood, so it's not like they're doing any big chore there. Kind of simple. You don't have to be in the hordes and the gathering crowds. You're going to miss out on a lot of big events, but a lot of those events are now online, so we can be very insular, and we can live in our own little bubbles and cocoons of our homes if that's what we want to do, instead of addressing the problems. But you have to address the problems. That's the issue. And until we address the problems, we're going to keep having these, and it's going to get worse. That's my assessment. That's my summary. Not very optimistic, I know, but I see no political hope anytime soon on the side of any political party that's going to make a significant change in that policy. It is what it is, and until that changes, it's going to continue to be what it is, which is a mess. Protect your family, protect yourselves. Live free as you reasonably can, so that our foreign enemies don't win anyway. But understand that every freedom you have comes with a risk, and only you right now are in possession of being able to mitigate that risk. That's all I got for you. More next time that I bring up security, which hopefully won't be for a little while. Focused on a lot of other things right now. Hope you found that helpful or insightful. Cheers for now.